1950s, a flourishing musical culture began to emerge in major UK cities such as Liverpool, Manchester, Birmingham and London. This was particularly true in the Merseyside area, where an estimated 350 different groups were active, often playing ballrooms, jive hives, concert halls and clubs. This new music became known as Merseybeat. Local author and historian Anthony Hogan has chronicled the fascinating and little-told stories of many of the characters from that era. The people and the bands who made a big contribution to the region's rise to rock and roll prominence. The Beatmakers describes the often overlooked black music scene in Liverpool and its importance to Merseybeat, as well as the amazing story of the Liverbirds, who became the first all-girl beat band, and Derry Wilkie, the black singer, who fronted a number of different bands and was the first Merseybeat artist to play in Hamburg and to release a record along with the Seniors. And with chapters on the great names such as Ted King Size Taylor, Johnny Guitar and Jeff Nugent, The Beatmakers is essential reading for all self-respecting lovers of rock and roll history.
Als nächste Band haben wir 4 Damen aus Liverpool, denn heute haben wir das Programm zusammengestellt, die Liverbirds.
Well, there's a fool going round, that's a sticky, sticky goose. Peanut, peanut butter.
The Liverbirds realised that it was time to try to get themselves a manager, and just like that, they decided to go down to London and try to meet Brian Epstein. They bought one-way train tickets to London as they could not afford returns, and off they went. The girls did not even have anywhere to stay. They chose to sit in a coffee bar until they threw them out and then sleep in a park before making their way to Brian's office the next day. Just how crazy were these girls who would go to any lengths to get what they needed? The next part of the evening seems unbelievable, but it really happened. They were all sitting in a coffee bar at Piccadilly Circus around 11 p.m. Pam looked out of the window and said, "There's Brian Epstein." With that, the 4 of them ran out and started chasing after him. Brian saw 4 young girls running towards him and must have thought that they were mad Beatles fans, so he ran down into Piccadilly Tube Station. The girls caught up with him and quickly told him who they were and what they wanted. He gave them his card and told them to come to his office the next morning. Of course, they didn't tell him that they had nowhere to sleep, and off they went to find a pal. Lord only knows what they must have looked like when they arrived at his office the next day. He was very nice and understanding, and said that he would arrange for them to play somewhere close to London as soon as possible and come along to watch. The girls then informed Brian that they had no train tickets back to Liverpool. He then called his secretary and asked her to buy them the tickets.
We'd like to do a number we recorded in London some time ago. It's called I Could Write a Book.
The Chants turned up at an afternoon cabin session and the Beatles asked them to sing. They left the Beatles stunned with their version of 1,000 Stars and were asked to perform that evening at the club. The Beatles informed Brian Epstein that evening that they will be backing the Chants. Brian was not happy and told them that he was refusing to allow them to do so. However, the band went against their manager and played the music for 4 songs that the Chants performed. 1,000 Stars, 16 Candles, Duke of Earl and Come Go With Me were the songs they sang that evening to a crowd who went wild in appreciation for them.
Let me tell you about a girl I know.
On 12th of October 1962, Little Richard appeared at the Tower Ballroom in New Brighton. Derry had ensured that he was present and had a number of photographs taken of himself alongside his hero. One well-known photo shows Derry, Joey Ankra, Sugar Dean and the Beatles all together with the star that they also admired. When Little Richard took to the stage, Derry watched excitedly. However, that excitement took over Derry, who could not contain himself as his idol burst into one number. Derry jumped up on the stage and began to sing along with Little Richard and even showed him how to bop. The crowd loved it and went wild. The Casuals had become one of the most popular acts at the White House pub, with many fans and musicians wanting to see them perform. The guides had noticed the musicians who kept returning to see them play and studying their chords. George recalled how Lennon and McCartney were often to be found at the pub watching the bands. He said they were a skiffle band back then, and like other young musicians, they would come along and try to pick things up. Chords, songs, style, etc. So when we heard that they had a gig in Tunnel Road, Wally Quarles went along to see what they were like. He returned saying that they only played 3 chords and didn't know much. Odie Taylor was the brilliant jazz guitarist who people flocked to see play at the venues around South Liverpool, including Dutch Eddie's, the Nigerian Princess, Palm Cove, the Pink Parrot, Russell's, Reese's, the Blue Angel and the Bedford Social Club, just to name a few. Odie played with the Odie Taylor Combo and jammed with many a musician and bands, or to be fair, most came hoping he would perform with them. Odie loved music and was a very unselfish man who would happily teach and encourage those who showed the desire. He also helped out many groups and singers by finding them work. Odie would do none of this for money, as it was all for the love of music. He inspired so many people, not only those from within his own community, but many from outside of it too. They admired and respected him for his wonderful musical ability. They also provided him with the nickname of the Godfather. Johnny Guitar had amassed a vast collection of Merseybeat memorabilia over the years. Every poster, ticket, handbill, business card and photograph, Johnny saved whatever he could. We have him and the rest of the Hurricanes to thank for saving those wonderful 1960 Kaiser Killer posters that Beatles fans love so much. He would show and sell many of his items at various events, one being the Beatles convention at the Adelphi Hotel in Liverpool. One year he was actually invited to open the convention, and Johnny's wife Margaret told of those times. She said that Johnny loved talking to people and would spend time talking with anyone who approached him. I would help out on the stall, and there was always a queue of people wanting to have a small chat with him. At times I would be hungry and wanting to go for dinner, but I would wait, as Johnny would never just brush anyone off. Often he would come to the conventions or other events after a 12-hour shift, yet you would never be able to tell. That is the kind of man that he was.
Come on now, wake up with me. Hey, hey, everybody, all around the world.
Ted Taylor was a big fan of the Huckleberry Hound show and would tune in to watch it whenever it was on. During one episode, the uncle of Huckleberry Hound sent him a crate that contained a kangaroo. Having never seen a kangaroo before, Huckleberry had no idea what it was and called it a king-size mouse. Brian Kelly, who ran the Latham Hall and the Jive Hive, was also a fan of the cartoon show, and when Brian saw Ted at his next gig, he called out, "Here comes King-size Taylor," and both guys laughed. Of course, with Ted being very tall, he was 6'5", king-size suited him and the name stuck.
A mashed potato, yeah!
By the 1970s, Jeff Nugent had taken employment as a performer aboard the QE2 cruise ship. One time when the QE2 had docked in New York, Jeff was eager to find a music shop so that he could go out and buy some new guitar strings. The crew had been warned not to leave the ship alone, as the district they were near was considered dangerous. Urgent need for the strings was enough for Jeff to decide that it was a risk worth taking, and off he went in search of a taxi. However, the passengers had all by now left to explore the city, and everywhere was deserted. Jeff walked along the dockside until he spotted a wide road and headed towards it. Hardly any traffic was coming along, but he thought he would follow it. After a while, he saw a man in the distance, and as he neared him, Jeff asked him if he knew where a music store was or a taxi rank. The guy looked at him for a few seconds and then said, "You're Jeff Nugent from The Undertakers. I used to watch you at the Oral Park Ballroom." The guy then gave a whistle and a cab kit arrived from nowhere. He spoke to the driver, then beckoned Jeff to get in. He was taken to a music shop and the driver waited for him while he made his purchase before taking him back to the ship. When Jeff tried to pay, the driver refused to take any money from him. Jeff never found out who that guy was who sorted out the taxi for him that day. Why were Mojo Filter so popular and sought after during the 1980s? First of all, they were very good at what they did. They were also not a tribute band as many others were. These guys played the classics and the rare songs that the Merseysound had been built upon. They also included a number of 60s numbers that had been hits for bands around the world. However, and most importantly, Mojo Filter never tried to copy any artist. Instead, they played it their own way, and the sound that they produced was authentic and full of spirit and energy. That is why they became as popular as they did. If you never managed to get to see them play live, then you missed out on something really special. The Shakers spend the weekends thrilling the locals and tourists down in the cavern. Of course, they play gigs elsewhere. In fact, their portfolio is a very impressive read. They have performed all over the UK, Europe, the Middle East and the USA. Their founder and drummer Tony O'Keefe summed it all up when he said, "Our collective cap is always doffed to the original beatsters in Liverpool who paved the way, and I'm so glad that we've had the opportunity to play with many of them and still do." Sadly, some of our Merseybeat brothers have now departed, so we will continue to fly the flag for those who rocked and rolled in the beat clubs and dance halls of Hamburg and Liverpool. The beat goes on.
Ladies and gentlemen, all the way from Italy. Could you please put your hands together for Taxman?
The magic of Merseyside and its performers reared its wonderful head in 2012 when a group of Italian gentlemen had their dream come true of performing the Beatles music at one of the venues the Fab Four had once played at in Liverpool. The gig had been arranged between Jeff Nugent and Beatles tour guide Stevie T, who is one of the tour guides for Mop Top Tours. The band, Taxman, consisted of Giorgio Stelliti, who played lead guitar, Antonio Chilla, who played rhythm guitar, Ennio Peritore, who played bass guitar, and Pino Lo Giudice on the drums. Their friend, Stefano Mussolino, had also travelled with them from Italy to film their performance and take photographs. Pino recalled the event.
Basically, it was Stevie T of the Mop Top Tours, Beatles Liverpool Tours, who arranged our gig at the Latham Hall. He had approached the one and only Jeff Nugent, God bless him, and had kept me in touch with him. It was Jeff who had proposed that we play at the hall on August the 30th, 2012. We received a very warm welcome and we were treated like real rock stars. The gig was fun. It was an honor to play There's a Place, which is my favorite Beatles song, in the town that I felt that I belonged to.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liverpool. I love you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Taxman.
Liz and Jim Hughes were two Beatles fans with a passion for remembering the band that they loved and the music of the Merseybeat era. They first set up the Magical Mystery Store at 24 North John Street in the late 1970s. On the 3rd of January 1981, they moved into premises on the top floor of 18 Matthew Street, above what is now Flanagan's Apple. Here they opened the Cavern Mecca, the first ever Beatles museum in Liverpool. The tourists now had somewhere to visit when they arrived at the street, though it also became very popular with the locals as well. Bob Wooler, Uncle Charlie Lennon and Eddie the Walrus Porter could all be found here at times, and in the Grapes pub. Eddie worked at the Cavern Mecca and later went on to become one of Liverpool's favourite Beatles guides. The Mecca was the forerunner of what was to come. The book is available from all good retailers, Amazon Worldwide, and the publishers Amberley.
people all